Welcome, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Ann Stanton, the president of the Linked Learning Alliance.
I'm Linda Collins, founder and executive director of the Career Ladders Project.
And I'm Chris Nellum, executive director of EdTrust West, and we are delighted to all have come together today to offer some context for the conversation about catalyzing coherence across our systems by launching our new joint initiative, Fast Forward California, which is designed to ensure that we succeed together.
The aim of Fast Forward California is to make the most of the Golden State Pathways and dual enrollment programs. Together, a $700 million investment in college and career pathways, college and career readiness for young people across this state. We all agree that we have a golden and timely opportunity. Emerging from the pandemic, student engagement, school attendance, college enrollment, it's all down, and racial and economic inequities have only deepened. But California is a special place. We have the drive, we have the know-how to rise to this challenge and transform the learning experience for students across our state. We know, though, that it will take real attention to new and deliberate coordination across our learning segments and systems to create seamless pathways for young people. And that's why we've joined together.
Thanks, Anne. And we also know from experience together that making the most of these opportunities will take an unwavering commitment to evidence-based rollout so that what we build together delivers on meaningful outcomes like on-time graduation, college enrollment, degree completion, and access to good paying jobs. We also know that this is especially important for Black and Brown Californians, especially those experiencing poverty. And finally, another lesson we've learned is that good policy and state investment are just the beginning, but they are not enough. So one thing we've come together to do is envision a future that is also focused on implementation so that we have a genuine commitment to equity.
Together, as longtime partners and student advocates, we will build on decades of evidence-based practice that our organizations, along with many others, have helped to forge. Golden State Pathways is our opportunity to connect the best reforms across our systems through deep, sustained post-secondary K-12 partnerships. And it's the chance to accelerate student progress through to college and career. As co-leaders of Fast Forward California, we'll be building on our respective strengths and networks across schools and colleges, employers and policymakers. Along with allies and champions like all of you, we know we can meet this moment.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Ann Stanton. I'm the president of the Linked Learning Alliance. You just heard me on video. Here I am live to have the wonderful opportunity on behalf of my colleagues, Chris Nellum and Linda Collins, to welcome everyone to this webinar, which is really focused on talking about Fast Forward California, the reason we're working together, and also digging in more deeply into the component parts that we are very excited about at this pivotal moment in time. I think together we believe, this is really California's opportunity to advance post-secondary access and economic mobility for the next generation, as well as to move us forward with these investments being taken together. Because if they are taken together, we ultimately believe that the investment in young people will be long-lasting, that it will, in collaboration with other statewide investments like community schools and after-school dollars monies, will really create this coherent experience, a seamless experience for young people that allows them to move forward in a fully self-sustained, exciting, thriving pathway for their future. So I'm going to dig in next a little bit more fully into the Golden State Pathways program investment at the state level, and give you an overview of its intent. What was the intent of the legislation? Because I think it's really important to fully understand what the goals of that work was, so that when we think about the investments that are going out and the dollars and the opportunity for people to apply for those dollars, it's critical to, I think, connect to what it was that it was intended to accomplish, right? So the Golden State Pathways program, and I just want to say, I think we've been hearing about this for a couple of years because the legislation was passed 2 years ago. It was then the dollars did not move out as quickly as they might have from the California Department of Education. So we were last year fighting again for those dollars to be retained in the budget. And wonderfully this year, the dollars have started to move out and into the hands of the people that are going to do the great work. The legislation is very clear. It frames the required elements of pathways that are equitable, that focus on the and of college and career readiness, not the or. They also identify priority grantees, priority sectors, as well as the data collection and reporting requirements that will help us know how we're doing and the outcomes it's having for young people and communities. The wonderful thing also in this particular legislation, which people had maybe not remember for the Career Pathways Trust dollars, which was another huge investment, there wasn't an independent evaluation of the work. With the Golden State Pathways framework, there is. We're going to know how we're doing and the impact it's having, which I think is critical for continued support and enthusiasm for the money. And last, it defines a 5-year timeline for the investment, which is a great opportunity for people to dig in, do great work, and move forward. Let me talk a little bit about how the funding is going out. Some of you might already know this already, but basically the distribution of the $500 million is in kind of 3 chunks, right? One is focusing on the technical assistance setup and apparatus, both at the state level as well as the regional level, to let kind of help the state overall use these monies in a coordinated way, right? So that the state level has some guidelines that tie to the legislation, the regional technical assistance centers help, and then we move forward then to implementation. And those dollars are the RFA for the implementation dollars are also out. And you're going to hear more about that. But the lion's share of the dollars, about 85% is going out through the implementation grants, right? And the technical assistance dollars is about 5% of the dollars. And then about 10% is in consortium and planning grants that are going out to folks. As we move ahead. The Golden State Pathway Framework is also, I want to emphasize that it's really grounded in the student experience. So the framework really focuses on, and I think the scoring will be attached to this, the framing of the legislation and the framework that undergirds the RFAs is really grounded in student experience, right? So we require it will require an integrated program of study that includes both A to G, but also another element of the CCI, that it requires the opportunity for all young people to have gain at least 12 post-secondary credits through CCAP or AP or IB. It also requires a full continuum of work-based learning, really the emphasis of young people's ability to apply what they're learning in the classroom and have it be integrated back into the real world where they can practice those skills through work-based learning, internships, apprenticeships. So the connection of college and career readiness is really at the center here. And most importantly, woven into this work is that we don't have integrated student services and supports as an afterthought. It is part of the DNA of what a really high quality, rigorous pathway looks like for young people. The dollars are also focused on priority sectors, which I'm happy to talk about. And please understand that the 4 main priority sectors, that they are not exclusive, right? So there are other pathways that are in other sectors that are eligible for the funding, And they're also informed, right, by regional economies and what are the labor markets, right? And like, for example, in Los Angeles, the creative economy, and in the Central Valley, agriculture, right? But the priority sectors are listed here as the main priorities. Education, including early education and child development, technology, healthcare, and STEM and climate-focused pathways, right? So that was the emphasis, was to really move forward to high wage, high skill, high demand employment for young people, and as well as the preparation, the educational preparation for those. So as I said, the money has gone, the money has gone out in a number of phases, right? So the first was really by setting up the technical assistance centers. So I know it'll be helpful to have a slide up with the actual names. So here are the lead technical assistance center for the Golden State Pathways is the Tulare County Office of Education. So they are really the guiding umbrella that's supposed to help the regional technical assistance centers really create a scaffolded sense of where are we all going together on this, right? I'm not going to list them out for you or name them, but there they are. Great leadership in all of those regional technical assistance centers and the county offices. This is a new structure in California for how dollars are going out, and we're doing all that we can and collectively to support their success in their doing this work as we go forward. So we are now set up for the structure, and again, as I said, the implementation dollars, the RFA for that has just gone out in June. And so I'm going to turn it over, I think, to Sesson to help us talk about how we move this forward in terms of implementation with racial equity and excellence at the center. Sesson?
Thank you so much. That was a great introduction and overview of Golden State Pathways and how important it is really for our students, particularly around framing racial equity. And that's something that we want to talk a little bit more about now, is how Golden State Pathways program really elevates and provides opportunities for the students who really could utilize this opportunity the most. By the way, I'm Sesson Preliot. I'm a higher education policy analyst at the Education Trust West, where I mostly work on dual enrollment and have the pleasure of working with our partners here at Linked Learning and CLP on this initiative, Fast Forward California. So I'll start right off with the Jumpstart report. For us at ETW, this is one report in particular that we really dove into trying to understand dual enrollment and how it benefits particularly Black, Brown, Native students dealing with poverty as well. So Sue's dealing with poverty as well. And really, that was one of the major benefits of Golden State Pathways, is the way that this particular piece of legislation and program has been developed. It really targets a lot of the obstacles that we've seen these student demographics face. And if you are interested in learning more about those obstacles, you can find them at jumpstartca.org. That's where most of this information from this Jumpstart report slide comes from. Take a little moment for you to just bruise over this, and then I'll move on to the next slide. So utilizing dual enrollment as an equity lever, we know that those demographics of students particularly are not the highest in participation rates. One of the things that we can see from the Jumpstart report and from the jumpstartca.org page is a mapping tool that we have at ETW, where it shows the participation rates of Black, Latinx, and Native students by county throughout the state of California. And because we know that those students are participating in dual enrollment, and we know that dual enrollment students are nearly three times more likely to attend college and graduate, we really want to bridge the gap between not only dual enrollment, but pathways programs. We want to provide students with the opportunities to find colleges and careers that match their goals and aspirations and train them with an integrated system. And that's precisely what Golden State Pathways is doing. So as we transition to this next slide, I just want to again emphasize how GSPP really prioritizes access to pathways in industries that offer high wage, high skill, and high growth jobs in their regional and throughout the state economy. And that's so key because we're not just talking about hypothetical, we're really putting it into practice. And Golden State Pathways allows for that to happen, for students to have a learning experience that translates directly into a career path that is going to be not only promising but lucrative, something that they can see themselves in, something that they are seeing themselves participate in through the different aspects of GSPP while they're in it. And then I'll transition to this last slide here. And for example, I just wanted to provide a few quotes directly from the framework and really elevate that framework in itself. So the GSPP framework actually outlines several key components. Those include integrated program of study, work-based learning experiences, integrated student supports, regional ecosystems, and sustainability and coherence. And underneath each of those categories, they have three subsections. What it is, which is kind of like a definition of those pieces, why it matters, which describes the impact, particularly on equity and for the students that we mentioned, and what it looks like, the structure, what that structure looks like to bring about those changes. And these are a few excerpts, mostly from the why it matters section. And you can really, if you look through the framework, it really provides a really great opportunity to create a very comprehensive application to provide a very equitable program for our students. I just want to read a couple of them here, but again, you can find them on the GSPP framework itself, which was released in June. So one of them, particularly around work-based learning experiences, speaks to saying work-based learning experience drive equity by providing students from all backgrounds with opportunity to build professional networks and social capital, gain insight into workspace dynamics, how to navigate them, and earn income while developing skills aligned to career interests, which is so practical because oftentimes we have a disconnect between these programs and what the students are experiencing and the real life experiences these students are having. So I just wanted to elevate that piece and again, really remind you to, as you're filling out that RFA, to really reference the GSPP framework because that will help you provide an application that's very comprehensive and equitable. Thank you. And I'm going to transition into my colleague, Laurencia, on dual enrollment.
Greetings, everyone. On behalf of the Career Ladders Project, we're excited to highlight a few elements as it relates to dual enrollment. On this next slide, you will see that there are many types of dual enrollment within the context of California. There's individualized experiences, early and middle colleges, there's CCAP and non-CCAP. And one element that we wanted to highlight is the opportunities that the College and Career Access Pathways dual enrollment opportunity has for students as it relates to catalyzing coherence. CCAP dual enrollment, as Sesson has mentioned, has evidence that shows that it closes equity gaps in participation, improves persistence and completion indicators for both high school and the college context, as well as an equity-centered approach to student opportunities and partnerships. And so we wanted to highlight that as a particular example for you all here today. And on the next slide, we wanted to just remind you all that there's an opportunity to fund these collaborative opportunities via dual enrollment with braided opportunities for funding. So you see you have the access to the College and Career Access Pathways grants, the middle college and early college grants, as well as what we're here talking about today, the Golden State Pathways Program grant. There are allowable activities amongst these grants for college advising, college counseling, and really trying to leverage those partnerships. One's mind. more details about the.
Thank you, Laurencia. Hello, everyone. My name's Noemi Donoso, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for the Link Learning Alliance. And I'm going to go over the GSPP funding opportunities and talk about sort of the three specific funding opportunities available through this Golden State Pathway RFA. First, you have the consortium grant, which is available for lead applicants who have 2 or more program partners that want to develop and support pathway opportunity. And 2 or more program partners means multiple LEAs and or higher education partners. And this funding is up to $2 million for a consortia with 5 members or less, and up to $4 million for a consortia that has 6 members or more. And these applications are, this particular consortia application is up to $500,000 per pathway. And LEAs can apply for planning and implementation grants as well as consortium grants. They just need to make sure that the services that are being offered through these different grant opportunities are different and not asking, not in a sense double dipping, asking for the same opportunity within each grant. And so that grant period is from April 2024 through June 2028, and that's for the consortium grant. Now, the planning grant is essentially a 1-year planning grant up to $200,000 per pathway. However, a planning grant applicant will automatically be considered for an implementation grant, and therefore planning grant applicants can qualify for $200,000 for a planning grant that will go from April 2024 to June 2025, and then $500,000 implementation grant that will then go from July 2025 through June 2028. Planning grant applicants will be required to submit a report at the end of the planning year demonstrating successful completion of the planning grant, and then an implementation budget and budget narrative in order to qualify then for that additional implementation funds, which is up to $500,000 per pathway. An LEA may submit a single application for multiple pathways across multiple industries. And then we have, lastly, the implementation grant, which is up to $500,000 per pathway. And again, an LEA can submit a single application with multiple pathways across multiple industries. And that grant period is April 2024 through June 2028. So you'll see in the next slide that there are 9 expected outcomes in the RFA. And 7 of those 9 outcomes are directly aligned with the Link Learning Framework that Anne shared at the beginning of this webinar. And we've color-coded them here for you, but you can see that the integrated program of study, inclusive of all A through G requirements and the 12 post-secondary units, are part of that integrated program of study of the Link Learning Framework. And then integrated student supports, as Anne described, and the work-based learning experiences, including industry-connected pathways, articulated pathways with post-secondary, as well as businesses, and that these opportunities are collaboratively built with employers. And then the last 2 expected outcomes are more operational in nature, describing how you will sustain the work of these pathways beyond the GSP grant and all of the data indicators that will be required on an annual basis. So if we go to the next slide, we provided a few proposal tips. Sesson did an excellent job going over the GSP framework. We highly encourage you to look at that GSP framework, have provided the link for you. So in case you wanted to do a deeper dive into assess and describe, why these expected outcomes matter. And then, as Anne said, we also you need to make sure that you make the case for the priority sectors, and you're not limited to the 4 priority sectors that were outlined. Understanding that throughout the state, regions have sectors that are not necessarily in those priority sectors, but if you are selecting a sector like agriculture or the entertainment industry, the arts, etc., really making the case for that it's high wage, high need, high demand in your particular region. Really recommend that you emphasize articulation, dual credit, and the work that you are doing with post-secondaries in your region. Cohorting is obviously very important within Pathways, really enables students to share learning across disciplines and real-world projects, as well as with their work-based learning experiences. And then student supports is critical to ensure the success of each and every student, highlighting college and career support services, and demonstrating a master plan for work readiness, what we call a continuum of work-based learning experiences that ultimately include internships, apprenticeships, and certifications. And then finally, as you've heard so eloquently from all of the speakers to date, equity is at the center of this grant opportunity. It is critical that you ensure each student has access to every one of these pathway components, including dual enrollment, work-based learning opportunities, and a college and career plan. So finally, just to give you a recap on the dates and deadlines, the GSP application is due March 19th. The grant awards will be announced April 9th, and appeals will be due by April 23rd. And so now I will send it back to my colleague Sesson, who will share additional resources.
Thank you so much, Noemi. That was great. And again, that was an excellent way to frame this particular program, and especially ending it with recommendations on how to create a great application. And that's the main reason that we're here, is to support you all in that journey. Now we're just going to move to some additional resources. So I want to just talk through a few of them here, but we're going to provide links in the chat as well. The first one is going to be that GSPP framework. Again, the way that it's structured and laid out provides a great opportunity to better understand GSPP in general, and then understanding each aspect down to the key components, why those different aspects matter, what they look like in terms of building out your program. So it's extremely important, and we highly emphasize checking out that GSPP framework and preferentially having it for reference while you're filling out the RFA. I know that when the RFA was released as well, it does mention the GSPP framework in the introductory section. So again, I can't overemphasize that enough. Next would be our FFCA website. Since we've been doing this impactful work all together, really coming together and coalescing to really bridge the gap between dual enrollment, pathways, programs, and other opportunities, really to create that coherence for our students, because our students don't see these different aspects or segments as separated. It's all part of their experience and part of their learning experience, which is one of the reasons that we came together to strengthen that learning experience for the students. So you could check out our FFCA website. We'll continue to post different opportunities and resources there for yourself, for students doing this work. Again, I would emphasize checking that out when you get the opportunity. Next, we have Career Ladders Projects, CCAP grant recipients map. There's going to be a link for that as well. So you can actually see a map of where the recipients of the grant, of the CCAP grants are located. I know that's extremely key and important information, and a great reference to have on hand for a number of reasons. next, we're going to have Link Learning Student Outcomes Report, which is extremely impactful. I would highly recommend that you have the opportunity to take that report, read that report, share it, have that on hand. A lot of great material in there that is extremely important, again, in terms of doing this work. I know I've listed off a few things. I'm gonna give a little break for some of y'all to get some of those links. And then next, we have a few opportunities for y'all to actually connect with us deeper. One of those opportunities is coming up, as a matter of fact, next week. For those of you who are in the Southern California area, we are hosting our second annual California Dual Enrollment Equity Conference. So a conference particularly directed toward doing work in terms of dual enrollment and providing equity in that space. It's going to be at the Long Beach Westin from February 20th through the 23rd. Again, that's going to be February 20th through the 23rd. And if you don't have an opportunity to connect this year, whether that's any of the panels or the site visits, or even just stopping by, saying hello, it is an annual conference, so we will have an opportunity to connect next year. And we have a link for the website there as well, if you would like to connect. And one other conference that we have that you have ample time to connect with us at as well will be the Linked Learning Conference. And that's going to be in Los Angeles from April 8th through 11th. And I highly recommend that you don't miss that event, that you make sure that you are in attendance or send somebody or have somebody in contact that is going to witness the most all the impactful information, resources, and sessions that are going to be there at that conference in downtown Los Angeles. Again, that's going to be April 8th through 11th. And just wrapping up, we just want to remind you that the overlying message here between this webinar and our work together as Fast Forward California, and even with these additional resources, is that we're here to help. I know we're all here gathered at this webinar because we care about our students. We really want them to have the best experience that they possibly can have, and we want to make sure that they are empowered. So if you have any additional questions or would like to connect outside of the resources that have been provided here today, feel free to reach out to any of us at our respective organizations or through the FFCA website or through either of the events that we have coming up. We would love to talk to you. And with that, we're going to transition into a little bit of a Q&A. So I know we've answered some questions already, and then there are some remaining open questions. So I'll actually start here with reading some answered questions for the rest of the group, and then, excuse me, I'll transition to the open questions thereafter. So one of our attendees asked a great question. It was a clarifying question around 2-year CTE pathways will need and them needing to have 12 units of dual enrollment or AP. How does this work when CTE requires a CTE credentialed teacher, which is typically a college faculty, and oftentimes college faculty don't have this. And AP is not always aligned to CTE pathway courses outside of computer science. And that was a great question. And we really appreciate the detail as well. And we had the opportunity for one of our colleagues, Jerry at CLP, to answer that question as far as saying that the GSPP application should provide an early college credit opportunity to earn at least 12 post-secondary credits that are applicable toward the completion of a degree, certificate, or credential. So examples would include, but not limited to, dual enrollment, advanced placement, international baccalaureate courses. And then moving to the second question, asking more so about can you focus on dual enrollment pathways that are not necessarily K-12 CTE pathways embedded in the school day? And the answer to that, again, thanks to Jerry from CLP, the answer is going to be yes. So after school dual enrollment courses, articulated classes, AB and IB. And I know we sent out the link for the Jumpstart report as well. Thank you for asking about that. And thank you, Alice, for posting that. I really appreciate that. Next, we have a question. Can you explain what is an LEA and how nonprofits partner with them to support an application? Great question. So an LEA is a local education agency. Nonprofit partners can be a part of that grant. They will not be listed on the budget or budget narrative, but that local education agency, LEA, can create a contract with the partner. These are some great questions that y'all are asking. I'm really glad. We can move to the next one here, and that's going to be, do the consortium grants allow for nonprofit partners or only LEAs or only LEAs and higher ed institutions? So nonprofit partners can be a part of the grant. Again, they won't be listed, similar to the last question that we answered there, but the LEA can create a contract with the partner. Let's see what else we have here in the chat. Another participant asked us, do you have any
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Sesson, it took me
Yeah.
a minute to get back. Just
No
an
worries.
additional clarification on the consortium grants. Sesson and Jerry are absolutely right that a nonprofit can certainly be included in the consortium grant, as can employers. However, they are not considered members. So when the consortium grant says up to $2 million for 5 members or less, up to $4 million for 6 members or more, there's an appendix where you will need to list the members. And in that case, members are LEAs and post-secondary institutions. However, community-based organizations, nonprofits, employers, et cetera, can be included in the grant, and as Sesson restated, can also qualify for subcontracts within the grants. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that clarification. That's so important, and I really appreciate it. And this is, again, one of the benefits of having such a strong partnership with FFCA, where we can really get into the meat of the questions that you have and really trying to help you again. And as you are filling out those RFAs, if we can be of assistance there, if you have questions that we can point you to other resources, we'd love to do that. So again, I'll continue through some of the questions here. Do you have any parameters on what the grant funds can be used for, salaries, buildings, etc.? And that was something similar to what Noemi was just speaking to. So Appendix J on the RFA identifies what you can purchase with each of the 3 grant types. Another attendee asked, if I'm applying for an implementation grant across multiple pathways and industries using one application, and I, for example, would like to hire a CTE counselor, would I include this in the budget narrative and spell out each pathway they're supporting? That is an excellent question. So CDE is working on restructuring the budget form and budget narrative and should be sending out that information soon. We can go on ahead to Keisha.
Just to give a little bit more clarification. Yes, so originally when the RFA came out, it was for the planning and implementation. The CD had stated you could only apply for 1 pathway per application. Since then, they have edited that to allow for a single LEA to submit a single application across multiple pathways and multiple industries. And therefore, they are now in the process of reorganizing the budget form. And the way that it's been reorganized, you are still going to, for every single code, you are still going to have to list each pathway at each school site and the budget amount tied to that code. And so, for instance, if you wanted to hire an FTE across multiple pathways, because frankly, 500,000 for 4 years may not allow you to hire an FTE. And so if you have multiple pathways in your application, you want to leverage those dollars, you could essentially say, okay, I'm going to hire one FTE that is going to serve 4 pathways. And then you would list for each pathway at each school 0.25% of an FTE. And then you list 0.25% 4 times, and you've got 1 FTE, or however you want to split that FTE across however many pathways. So the form is going to require essentially budget specificity for every single code, for every single pathway at every single school that is included in that single application.
Perfect. That is so great. Thank you for providing that additional context, Noemi. That really provides a much better picture, particularly around that question and answer. Thank you so much. So next we had a question around how are you going, or how are you getting around AB 130 for internships without using or learning on launch? So at this point, districts still need to meet AB 130 requirements, and Senate Bill 531 made the change in law. So it's a much smaller barrier than the previous law. So that's also good news, a little bit more context around that, and I hope that helps. Next, we had a question around, do you have specific advice related to GSPP for adult education programs serving high school completion and GED students through dual enrollment and CTE pathways? Excellent question, particularly because we really, again, the strength of GSPP and doing this work is really meeting the student experience and having a student experience led response to the students that themselves. So CDE has emphasized that the grant is only for high school students, particularly for grades 9 through 12. I think that is a question that we may have to address CDE on a little bit more directly. But I think that is, again, that's a key question, particularly because adult education programs are so important, and particularly for our learners who are utilizing dual enrollment in pathways to gain high school completion in their GEDs. We definitely, that's something that we could circle back on as well, but I would highly emphasize reaching out to CDE to get an official response from them, because it would take around the same amount of time for us to engage them on that piece. But definitely feel free to reach out if you would like support in terms of asking that question. Next, we have a question around the grant opportunities that are open to nonprofits. And this is a similar question around nonprofit involvement in the grants. And again, I just want to elevate that they can be partners in the grant, though they won't be listed on the budget or budget narrative. But the LEA can indeed contract with the partner. Next, we have a question around, again, nonprofits. So one of our participants stated that they understand nonprofits do not qualify as LEAs. We are, and they are working with districts now, but since the deadline is March 19th, it may be difficult to be explicitly written into the initial application because the contract hasn't appeared yet, right? The contract hasn't been established yet. Is there flexibility to use funding later on if granted the award? Excuse me, and do LEAs need to explicitly write us in now? So the subcontract does not need to be completed by March 19th. So you do have a little bit more time on that piece. Excellent question. I love the fact that you're delving into the work, that you have this question that is so pointed and demonstrates the work that's already been done thus far. And I'm so excited to hear the outcome, particularly because, again, there's a little bit more time there since the subcontract doesn't need to be completed by March 19th. Definitely wish you the best on that one. Another person asked another clarifying question around, are these grants just for LEAs? And the simple answer for that is particularly yes. Yeah, like that's where the grants are gauged to. So it looks like we have a few more questions popping up in the chat. I'm going to let a few of them load here, and then I'll riddle through a few more of them. And thank you all so much for asking these questions. They're great questions. And it's really a lot of the questions that you're asking are going to be beneficial not only to the one person asking them, but for the larger group. So I really appreciate that. I know someone also asked, considering the changes that CDE continues to make, has there been talk about extending the grant deadline? Unfortunately, not. There's not been talk about extending the grant deadline at this point. And from what we've seen with the first round of RFAs, it's unlikely that will be the case. But there is no talk about extending the grant deadline as to date. See what else we got here. Some of the questions are a little repetitive, so I'm reading through and making sure that we're not being too duplicative. Here's a good question, and I might defer to some of my colleagues to see if they may have an answer for it. Thanks for clarification and distinction between the LEAs and CBOs. Is there anyone I can speak with that can help me come up with the best strategy to present this opportunity to a school district and receive some of those funds through a subcontract? Again, I'd like to defer to some of my colleagues and see if anyone may feel ready to answer that question. Just give it a minute.
I'll take and encourage any of the colleagues who want to jump in. I think what this question is asking is how to approach school districts. I think, and my advice is twofold. You know, one, you could present the RFA information, the links from the CDE. There are materials there to inform districts about the opportunity, and or contact the regional technical assistance centers. I think you saw one of the slides early on had the 9 regional technical assistance centers, and it may be helpful to reach out to that regional technical assistance center and see, because each of the regional technical assistance centers is providing a depth of information to their local LEAs. And so that may be a good place to start as well. And yes, as we've stated, CBOs can be included as subcontractors within GSP applications.
Thank you so much again, Noemi. I really appreciate that. Reading through a few more of these questions here. We still got some that are still populating, and thanks again for asking these questions. I would.
I will, oh, sorry, Sesson, I'll just hop in. There are a couple of questions on internships. And unfortunately, I'll say is that while internships, apprenticeships, certifications, et cetera, are definitely a priority within the GSP RFA, internships are not allowable expenses. So that I think will answer a couple of these questions because you are not able to use GSP grant funds to pay students for their internships. I believe you can use, and again, this is something to verify with the CDE, but I believe in the interpretation that I have, you can use GSP funds to pay for a coordinator, for instance, who is helping to facilitate internships, but you cannot use GSP funds to directly pay an intern.
Thank you again. Yeah, I saw most of the questions left were geared toward that. I think that was an excellent answer to kind of sum things up. If you did not receive a response at this point in time, we will follow up with you. A lot of the questions that were remaining have been asked in one way or another. But we definitely really appreciate your time here today. And again, though the webinar is concluding, we are still here to help you. And we're still here to engage in this work with you to again provide the best opportunity and experience for our students. And we just want to thank you really for taking the time to come out to attend this webinar, to take notes, to share the resources that we shared with your colleagues and your comrades as well, and to ask such insightful and impactful questions during this time. Thank you so much.